Time now is 4 o'clock. We'll go ahead and start the study session for the City Council of Farmers Branch, the afternoon of December the 13th. Time now is 4 o'clock. On our study session agenda, we have item A1, which is to discuss the regular agenda items. And we'll go around as our usual custom. Mr. Jackson, do you have?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Item H9, the air conditioning chiller units. This would come in, we're coming in $66,000 under budget.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Tom Hayes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And we took advantage of a prepayment savings of $13,000.
Yes, sir.
Just want to say thank you. Nice job there. Item J2, the property maintenance code. Just had a question on that one. Leo, what is the requirement to be agricultural by Dallas County? What's that requirement?
In order to get the agricultural exemption, you need to have been operating agricultural activities for the 5 years prior to your application for the exemption.
Okay.
You have to be at least 3 acres large, and you have to be, help me out, Jared, there's one more.
Yeah, there is one more.
Thank you for agreeing with me. You're actually getting a presentation from this from Jared later. But there's a third requirement, and I'm sorry it escapes me. But if you check all those 3 boxes, then in theory the county gives you your exemption.
So
It must
look
be
at-
used for an agricultural purpose is the other part of that. So the agricultural purpose and then also for 5 years proceeding as
Yes.
well. So currently proceeding and then at least 3 acres large.
Okay, so in this code, it just says agricultural by Dallas County. It doesn't say you have an agricultural exemption issued by Dallas County or something more formal. That's why I'm wondering, is this language too informal or am I just overthinking it?
Possibly, it has come up to the table. This is the 3rd time now that it's been reviewed, and the lawyers, of course, have seen it.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem to concern them, and code is just kind of rolling with it. So
Good enough.
we have no concerns at the moment.
All right. When you think of that third thing, let me know.
Yeah, oh no, that was it. It was the agricultural activities, more than 3 acres, and you have to have those agricultural activities for 5 years before your exemption application.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I have a question on H4. It was my understanding that when we went through the whole process of the city manager search and then subsequently basically hiring you for that, I thought that it was not required that it goes before us to do a employment agreement with Michael Mashburn. I thought that was part of the duties of the city manager to appoint.
Correct, that is absolutely the case, but I want to be fully transparent with you all because the value of the assurances that I'm giving to Mike through this contract exceed $50,000. I wanted you all to be part of that discussion and know that was my plan. So some of the stuff I'm having Mike work on, make sure he has those same assurances, similar to me, but he's still appointed by me, hired and fired by me, and evaluated by me. But the value of the assurances he asked for to take this role exceeded $50,000. So I wanted to bring that to you all in full transparency so you know what I negotiated with Mike.
Right. And it's part of our responsibility to review, the contract for the city manager. And will that be the case going forward then with Mike, since this is coming before us now?
No, this is a contract that automatically terminates in 2 years because by that time we'll have proven the stability that he's looking for him and what he needs. So this contract is a one-time, it's 2-year for the assurances of his position, whereas mine, I'm hoping we discuss to future dates beyond the 2 years.
Right, okay. No, I just wanted clarification, because it was my understanding that was not part of our responsibility to, be involved in the hiring of different department heads.
The reason why is because it exceeds manager's spending authority.
Okay,
That's the only reason.
yeah, that's all I had, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Driscoll.
That answered my question as well. Mine was to just ensure that we were still empowering our city manager to make those decisions. I didn't realize that we that we had that where we exceeded the 50,000, then you had to bring it, so. But no, that answers my questions as well.
Okay, very good.
So I just have a question about H3. So it talked about some potential specific roadways that are going to be considered for repair. I was kind of looking to see if you had an idea of what those roadways were going to be.
No, this is just a ILA, just our master agreement with Dallas County, if we should ever do anything.
I see.
We have to have one on the books, be able to do a PSA, which is a specific project agreement.
So is there
So-
intent to do that at some point, and we're just
If
letting
we
the
ever
ground?
have a,
Okay.
if we ever do anything, but generally speaking, there's not a whole lot that Dallas County, right now, that we're projecting that we need their services, other than maybe some trails.
Okay, thank
But
you.
that's what that's for. This is just for maintenance of roads, and if we ever need to use them, it's just an agreement that has to be on the books.
Okay, thank you. And then for J2, so I just wanted to make sure that I clearly understood the changes that are going to be happening here. So the first is removing the word homogeneous, and then the other is changing the setback requirement. That's correct.
Yes.
And those are the only changes that are going to be occurring. Okay. So I've received some complaints about the current setbacks as it relates to the corner of a property when it is at an intersection. The ability for someone to turn safely is hindered by the crops. And so I don't know what the right answer for that is, or maybe if there's a solution we've already thought of, but I just wanted to bring that forth since it was brought to my attention.
Yeah, I can add on to that. Yeah, if there are any other violations that exist outside of the amendments to this vegetation code, they still are enforced across the board, just like they normally would be. So if there's a view obstruction, that would be treated like any other view obstruction regardless of
Okay.
the parameter.
I see, understood. And then my other concern was about agriculture, the definition in there. I'm going through a scenario in my head, and I don't want to inadvertently penalize somebody who may have property that's agricultural type, but it's not necessarily defined as agriculture by DCAD. And if they're working towards getting that property classified as agriculture, it could take 5 years, it sounds like. And so it would inappropriately inhibit that person's ability to meet that 5-year agricultural type activity burden because they're going to be prohibited from doing that, it sounds like, right?
I think you're referring to us requiring the perimeter mowing, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, does that in any way affect the person's ability? Okay.
No, not at all.
Okay, and is there anything else about the ordinance as the one that we're gonna be voting on today that would affect someone's ability to meet those 3 prongs of becoming agricultural?
No.
Okay. Alrighty, then that's it for that one, thank you. And then are we talking about J3 at a separate time? I just kind of had a definition question.
Go ahead and ask.
Okay. So I'd like to understand the difference between a letter of notification and a letter of admonition. Admonition.
Admonishment and reprimand.
Yes.
Those are basically the only 2 options that are available to the council should you take action. And the attorney, independent attorney will be here at 6 o'clock and she can answer any questions.
Okay.
But you can make a motion to issue a letter of admonishment or reprimand or notice of violation, but that contemplates that there'll be some further writing, which we all could disagree about what that writing should consist of. So one of the actions that you can take tonight, assuming that you want to take action of admonition or reprimand, would be a motion that the former mayor, Robert C. Dye, be reprimanded or admonished for his emails or conduct, blah, blah, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So if you want to bring an end to the matter tonight, so we don't have further actions going out, further writings to be developed, then whatever motion you might make for action would be a motion that the former mayor be admonished or reprimanded for X, Y, Z. Does that help you?
A little bit, but there's, it lists, I think, 6 different options, and one of them says issue a letter of notification. And I don't know how that is different from a letter that admonishes somebody. Like, what is the substance in each of them that make them different?
I think that's just a notice that you've violated the code of ethics without imposing a penalty.
Okay. The first one, the letter of
No.
notification, is that you violated and,
Right.
okay. Alrighty. That's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omar. I just had a couple of questions on H10, which is Code of Ordinance related to trash cans. Looks like we added closure of the bin itself, which I didn't remember us having it being closed. Today or yesterday was a great example. When CWD comes by, they leave it open. So do we have to have closure in the ordinance itself?
I would recommend leaving it because we do get a number of complaints of trash lids left open and trash blowing into other yards. I think that we can trust the code officers to know this is trash day, the truck dropped a cart, you know what I'm saying? So I don't
It's
see.
almost as every
Yes, I mean, just
bin is
the,
open because it's been
right,
dumped.
right, so that,
I know we're getting, splitting
No, that's fine,
hairs.
I've had this discussion with them before, because we've got complaints, so, Shane Davis, or State of Public Health. So CWD says they leave the carts, lids open, so people know they serviced them, so there's not a question whether they come by your house or not. If it's open, but the problem is when it rains a lot, like today, it causes all these other problems, a really heavy cart, and people that are struggle physically to empty that cart, it causes problems for them. So it's an ongoing debate with them, I get you want to notify the residents you've been by their house, so it's an visual, but it comes with other challenges.
Right.
So there's also an operational thing for a reason why they do it, and it's, we had this discussion more than once
Okay.
with them.
So is it internal to the code
Yes.
office to figure out
Yes.
that particular application?
yes, if the cart is left out at the street beyond its allotted time, we would send a notice to the house that says, A, don't leave it there, it needs to be pulled back, and its lid must be closed.
Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't penalize folks for the garbage truck.
Fair
So,
enough, fair enough. Thank you for that clarification. Shane, thank you as well, sir. We will address item H11 as well before we close this regular discussion, if we have any discussion related to the appointments of the Parks Board. And then Pete, I have a question for you on item J3.
Yes, sir.
So we're open and understanding. Since this will be in open session downstairs, how do we handle Councilmember Jackson's participation and/or involvement?
So I advise Mr. Jackson, and he understands that he is disqualified from participating in the vote or the discussion on that item, and he has signed an affidavit of recusal. And so he will not participate in the discussion regarding the vote. Now, when the investigating attorney presents the report, if he has any questions of her about the report, he's certainly happy to do so. And he's disqualified because he was the complaining witness. He can't also be the jury as well.
And Richard, I'm just making sure that we're all understanding what the rules of the operations are. So this is not indicative of any, any reasoning or rationale, just so we're all understanding that. Let's see. Mark, thank you for answering my questions before the session started. That leaves us then to discuss item H11, considering the board approvals. We have 4 openings, 5 applicants. with a variance on their participation on which boards. Do we have a willingness to iron this out now? Because it is on consent, otherwise we have to move it to the regular agenda. How does everyone feel about this? Councilman Jackson?
I'll pass on my comments at the moment. Thank you.
Councilman Driscoll?
Yeah, I will as well. I mean, I think it would be optimal if we had more candidates, that we're interested in these particular boards, but we are where we are, so.
Okay, so I'll go around the room and I'll ask another question. Councilwoman Williams?
Yeah, my comment to what you're asking is that, yes, I think it would be ideal if we could have that discussion and come to some kind of agreement before we go downstairs. So that would,
Yeah, fair
I
enough.
think that there's 4 spots and 5 people. Surely we can come to some kind of consensus.
Councilman Roman?
I agree with Councilmember Driscoll in that I don't think that we've done a very good job marketing these opportunities to the mass public, and I'd like a few more individuals to throw their hat in the ring. There are some people who, read the agenda and they're like, oh, I didn't know that there were opportunities to be involved, and so now I know to remind them when it's time, but if there was maybe some marketing effort pushed out to garner more involvement from the community, I think that's what I would prefer.
All right, so that brings a third option. So we have 1 is to move it to the regular agenda item. 2, to address it here in the study session so it can remain on the consent agenda. Or 3, Pete, do we have the ability to table it?
Yes?
So those are our 3 options. Where do we feel like we want to land on this?
I think it would be best if we could settle it up here, and all of these positions, a lot of these are, moving people up on the alternate list. But it's good to have the boards, fully staffed.
So that's a vote to fix it and address it here? at
Yes,
this? Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Jackson?
Yeah, I would concur with that.
All right.
Sure.
So Tracy's already done that? You're all right? If we
Yeah,
can-
that's fine.
All right. So we have 4 spots. We can address this from either the applicant's desire of first, second, third, or we could look at it from the board's position. We have 2 on the Senior Advisory Board, 1 on the Historical Parks and Restoration Board, and 1 on Parks and Recreation. So
Well, and we have, okay, so we've got 2 spots on senior. We have no one who is choosing senior as their first choice.
correct.
No one who's choosing senior as their second choice. 3 that would take seniors as their third choice. So I think we should probably fill those 2 spots first. Of those with Ms. Creason, Ms. Munez, and Mr. Morant. Out of those 3.
Yeah, those are the 3 available. So we have 3 for 2 slots.
Well, Ms. Durant's not a senior.
That's correct, which is an interesting. Mr. Mashburn, could we direct this?
I think there's a age requirement.
We got the senior board?
Yeah. 50?
We'd have to look at that directly. I'm not aware of the exact age requirement, but that would make sense. Certainly you don't want somebody making decisions of a facility they can't use. So I would recommend hiring somebody 50 plus, which is the age requirement of the facility.
Okay.
So by default, that leaves us with 2.
That leaves us with
So-
Mary and Alita
Correct, Mary and Alito
for senior.
for the Senior Advisory Board. That takes us then to the historical part, and we'll mark, unfortunately, Mary and Alita both had that as their first choice.
And then that leaves us with the second choice. We only have one, which is Samaria Kate. Right? Am I reading that right?
Although I watched her video, and I thought, if I understood, could somebody clarify how she made Historical Board as her second app? Because I watched the video and she said Parks and Rec was her only one.
She clarified later.
Thank you. Okay, it's been clarified later. Thank you. Okay.
So that, I mean, that would make sense to me that we would, since that's her second choice, that would make sense to me that she would go to historical.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that too.
I'm all right with that.
Agreed.
I'm sorry, Richard.
Yes.
Thank you. Apologize. And then that leaves us Parks and Rec. So we've addressed Samaria, Mary, and Alita. And that leaves us Ms. Durant and Ms. Raton.
Did Jennifer serve on Parks and Rec before?
What was the last name?
Durant?
Durant.
Yes, I
Durant.
believe so.
Yeah. Didn't she just roll off in May?
I think, yeah, I don't know the exact, I'll have to check with Amy, but it was recent, yes.
Yeah, so it would make sense to me that we would pick Crystal, since she's so soon after rolling off, that we would pick Crystal into that position. So, and that's another young woman with a young child in our city, so.
And clarifying, I looked ahead, there is an opening on Parks and Rec coming up in the June timeframe as well. So there is
Perfect.
another opportunity
If
to
Mr.
serve, so
Rent
that would
wants
be,
to-
that would
wants to
continue
roll
the
back on.
separation.
I agree with that.
I'm
I am
fine
not
with
in
that.
support of that,
Okay,
for the same reasons that I mentioned during executive session
fair,
last time.
fair.
I would support Jennifer Durant. Having served on Parks and Rec and rolling off, she still has interest, she has experience, I like her communication background, which brings another dynamic to that board, so I would support Jennifer Durant.
I think, is there a stipulation, Stacy, I'll look to you, on how quickly they could be returned to the board and commission after rolling off?
There is a council of 6 months.
There's not for the boards and commissions, that's fine. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure.
All right. Jeez. So we're down to, we take a vote here and determine where this is gonna land? How would
Does
that work, Pete?
I don't think we can take a vote here.
You can't vote, but you can answer who you're gonna, who would support in open session, so.
Right,
So,
but that would mean we'd have to move the whole item into a regular item, is that correct? In order to address it in that manner, I would think.
No, because we did that before where we had a not complete
What?
consensus.
you could take that item separately on the consent agenda. And then make a motion at that time with the slate. With the slate based on the understanding of where people are.
Okay,
And that way you don't have to go the trouble of taking it off, renumbering it and all that.
understood.
Yeah, when you want to pull this off the consent and make it an item and
Well, just
officially
just
nominate
someone
these
can
people.
move to put the consent agenda without, except item, what item is it?
It's 11.
11. And then, assuming that passes, then I make a motion to approve item 11 with the following people. That way we don't have to
Understood.
do all those gyrations.
Do that right in the consent.
Yes, sir.
Right
Okay.
after, right
Right.
after that.
Okay, so
Okay,
you guys understand that? You're going to make these nominations before we vote on it.
Right.
I think-
So you'll have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus that item. And then someone can make a motion to approve that item with the following persons, and then vote on it, and you're done with the consent agenda and go on to the next item on the agenda.
Without having to renumber and.
Right.
pull.
Right.
Okay.
It's a historical practice, but not a necessary practice.
Yeah, okay.
So have we agreed on Parks and Rec then?
I'm in favor of having Cristal on. Jennifer just rolled off. And so, it's been our practice in the past, you roll off, and then it's the next opportunity to come back on. And so, as I've already mentioned, there are future slots that will come up.
Is there an opportunity for someone that's rolling off to reapply and stay on at that point in time?
The one that I'm referring to, the answer to your question is, if you want to continue, you can reapply. The one that I'm referring to is terming out, so they will not have the ability to reapply.
If you can't reach a consensus on one of the positions, you can go ahead and not address that tonight and deal with it later on. Meanwhile, the person holding that spot will continue to serve until their
I think this
successor's
is a
appointed.
vacant spot
It is
on
vacant
an
spot.
alternate
It is.
role.
It's not a, it's, yeah.
I think it's best we settle it today.
Yeah.
And if it's 3-2, as it seems to be, so be it.
That's how
Uh,
it always is with our boards
and I think-
anyway, is we take the majority and, I
Right.
mean, because we're not gonna get full consensus on every board appointment every time.
I want to give updated context. Mike just let me know that she was not on the Parks and Rec Board before, so that was Jennifer. He's finding out the previous board it was, but it was not Parks and Rec Board.
Oh,
So that changes the context a little bit. Previous discussion about the Senior Advisory Board, you do have to be 50 years old, so.
okay.
Thanks for the
So,
clarification.
so given that your main reason for not supporting Jennifer.
But that's, again, new information, so, yeah, we'll see where I could go either way. I think both individuals bring something to the table. I did like Ms. Durant's communication background, and her energy that she brought on, but Cristal as well, so we know what she brings to the table as well. And her background with the activities that we've done in the city and the expansion of those, I think that's been well documented, so.
I agree.
Both are good individuals, from my perspective, so I would be comfortable either way.
So part of the reason, that I certainly look at experience, background, and what they contribute to a board, but more than that, I look at to make sure that they're a good person. And as I've shared with many of you, when I was going door to door for my campaign, I had a resident stop me and show me some evidence where Crystal said, when she was asked, what do you know about your opponent? Her response was, he's Terry Lynn's puppet and he's gay. The statement, he's gay, was a statement, an inflammatory statement intended to undermine the Hispanic votes that I ended up winning. And for me, after having to try to address that with her and her not being forthcoming with it or wanting to have a discussion about it, I just can't support somebody who believes that with me being on council. Not only that, but at Halloween in the park, she tried to impersonate you when she tried to get VIP parking. And the staff fortunately had pictures of all the staff members, or all the council. So when she approached and said, "I'm Tracy Williams," they said, "No, you're not." And a police officer had to come and ask her to remove herself from the line because she was blocking traffic. And for me, hearing those things about somebody who wants to be on Parks and Rec, I can't support. But not only that, the amount of influence that somebody coming out of council immediately has is too dangerous. This is not the board of the council member who just rolled off and is going to be on this board. Maybe a year or two later, somebody who had recently been on council, it'd be appropriate, but just the amount of influence that exists with somebody who was recently on council just this year is far too great.
I'm just gonna reply to this. I think that this whole discussion is is unfair because she is not here to defend any of those statements.
Well,
And
I
so-
did try to have a conversation with her, so
That,
she could
that
have
may
submitted
be
herself.
fine, but she's not here to defend any of those statements. Or, and I don't think that it's fair for you to decide for her what her remarks about you being gay, what her intentions behind those remarks are.
Well, Tracy,
And so I think it's inappropriate for that whole part of that conversation without her being here to defend herself. I feel strongly about that, but that's, to impose what you believe someone's intentions are in this discussion, because that's what you're discussing. You're discussing what her intentions behind her statements were, is grossly unfair without having told her, hey, you need to be aware, I'm going to make this, I've tried to resolve this with you before, but I'm gonna bring this up in a public setting, where things are being videotaped and not allow you to defend your position at all.
Well, then take the intent away from it. Just the statement, he's Terry Lynn's puppet, and he's gay, really make it that much better? No, it doesn't. And what I'm talking about is something that is fact, something that happened. That's something that I saw and heard with my own eyes and ears. It's not something that I fabricated out of nowhere.
Again, we don't know that.
See, I've
We don't know
allowed
that,
you
and
the
we haven't
opportunity.
presented that.
I've allowed you the opportunity to finish your statements in a respectful manner. I have gone through a lot in council. You have seen the emails where people have attacked me for being gay. You have probably heard about instances where other situations have happened where I've felt threatened for my safety being on council, and I'm referring to the same individual. And I am tired of being attacked and undermined and bullied. It reminds me of when I was in middle school and in high school, and for all the people who might be gay, who have a family member who's gay, who might be in the same situation, maybe because not because they're gay or for some other reason that they're being picked on, I am here to stand and say that that kind of behavior is unacceptable on council, and she is lucky that at the time that she was on council, while she was going around saying this, that I didn't file a federal complaint for discrimination nor an ethics violation, given the violations that we've already seen happen. So I'm here to stand and say that behavior I'm not going to condone, and I'm not going to accept, and I'm not going to accept that kind of bullying from anybody, especially a former council member. And what I'm asking all of the council members here to do is to stand with me against that kind of bigotry. And if you're not going to stand, then that's okay. We will see how the vote turns out today. But at least I will know where I stand with every single one of you.
Just to be clear, you're not the only person on this council that's been bullied.
I didn't say.
For their
I didn't say. I didn't
For their
say.
personal life.
I'm just talking about my
And
experience.
you're not the only one who's standing alone in those either, Omar.
Well, I'm
And
asking for your
so-
help now.
So,
You didn't ask for me.
so, again, we did not allow this person to defend any of it. And saying the word gay when you are, when you openly
Let's not try
are.
to rationalize it.
I'm not. I'm not, because I don't know what her intentions were. I know the kind of person that she is, and I know who her friends are, and that would surprise me if her intentions were bigoted or meant to hurt you because of your sexual preference. I would be shocked if that was her intention. And again, I can't argue her intentions because I'm not here, I am not her, and she is not here to defend herself. So that's where I stand with that.
Fair enough.
I'm also not comfortable when someone doesn't have an opportunity to defend themselves. And I appreciate what you've said, Councilman Roman, but everyone should have a right to defend themselves if they've been accused of something. And help me out on this, Pete. I know, well, no, seriously, because I've had situations where a resident has threatened another resident, and a tenant threatened another person, neighbor, et cetera, and there've been extremely inflammatory remarks made and texted to that individual that we're gonna get this and this and this, and we're gonna beat not your butt, and more than that. And I have been alarmed, and I've made appointments and gone to the police and said, look, I'm concerned about some violence at this property, and they've informed me, until there's action taken, that's hearsay, and we don't get involved. So this is hearsay, and, I mean,
I appreciate you inviting me into the dialogue. This is purely a political matter, regardless of the allegations, regardless of who said what, she said what. So, Mayor Pro Tem, it looks like this is gonna have to be taken off, and
It does look like that. Can we can we
unless
modify
there's a
this?
consensus on the others, minus that one, and
We'll take that off. It's an alternative position on Parks and Rec. I think the motion would be to amend the consent agenda with that being modified, and we'll take the Parks and Rec off. Is that agreeable?
I'm not comfortable if someone is going to be blackballed because of something that someone said, that we don't know what the truth is.
well, he's not saying that.
And-
He's just saying on the consent agenda, motion to
Yeah.
approve the consent agenda minus item on item, whatever it's 11, motion to
Page
approve
11.
item 11 with the following persons, and we'll resolve the open seat on the park board
At a later date.
at a later date.
Okay, but I would also say,
If that's what you want to do, or during the regular session. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
why don't you get done what you can get done, and then do the argument about what you have to argue.
Let me understand this, because I'm gonna be doing this. On the consent agenda, you wanna leave it, this item on there, you're gonna nominate the people that you're comfortable with, and we go that and leave the other one open at that point, so you can do that. Okay.
Yeah, so,
Otherwise, if you're gonna have a split vote on this, you know, you don't wanna have a split vote on your consent agenda. So we would need to take it off.
but I would just like to say that as
Necessarily
Councilman,
a split vote.
excuse me, as Councilwoman Williams said, I know Cristal to a degree, and I would find it pretty shocking if she's done what has been alleged. And I believe I'm correct, that when she was on council, I believe she actually recommended you, Councilman Roman, to be on one of the boards a couple of years ago. So it's hard for me to kind of juxtapose all of that.
Well, to clarify, I did poll the votes, and she did not vote for me. So just to clarify your misstatement.
Not sure why that matters. It's not a favor being paid or anything.
all right, I think we've hammered this enough. So I think we agree on the Senior Advisory Board selection and the Historical Park and Recreation Board, and we'll remove the Parks and Rec
Yeah,
discussion.
whoever makes a motion will need to make those points.
Understood.
That's fine.
All right, that takes us then, that concludes the regular agenda item. Thank you for the discussion. Takes us then to the review, the 23 council calendar dates and proposed amendments. Stacy, please take it away.
Good afternoon, council. Excuse me, Stacy Henderson, City Secretary. And so I'm here to talk about the proposed city council calendar for 2023. In preparing this calendar, we really put a lot of effort into and looked into what worked, what needs improvement, council feedback, as well as just being cognizant of your time. So you'll see I've kind of broken the presentation out by quarter, so I'd like to go through each quarter and just give you some highlights, and then we can talk about any amendments you might have or any additions you might have. And you can also see underneath each month, I've included some items in red that are just required reporting that will come to you that month, or just items, important items that will be coming to you that month as well. And also kind of explain our thought process as we were creating this calendar. So in January, due to the holiday, the New Year's Day holiday, as well as requirements to canvass the January 21st election, that would require canvassing those results on January 31st. So I'm proposing to push the meeting dates back to the 3rd and 5th Tuesday that month, on the 17th and 31st. so that we can canvass those election results. And normally in January, the city council has their strategic planning retreat. Just given all that was happening in January and for the special election, having a new council person on board, we wanted to move that to February 28th. And we looked at that item and we wanted to combine that and possibly have a day for your city council retreat. And then later that evening, have a state of the city. We're recommending, 2 town halls this coming year. One of those being the state of the city, and the other one coming in August as part of the budget, which we'll get to. So that might look something like, maybe 11 to 6, 11 to 5 that day, we would do your strategic planning session. And then that evening, we would have all of council and have a state of the city town hall so that we can present to our residents what's happening. Also, you'll see that we'll have our board chair lunches those are proposed quarterly. And we have our board and commission banquet on the 17th. And then March is back to our first and third Tuesday. Did you all have any comments about that? Any questions, additions, changes? You're happy and you love it? There are, yes, 2 back-to-back meetings with January 31st and February 7th with that shift.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Any questions on the first quarter? All right,
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome. April through June. April, we have, that is our fairly normal month. May, we get busier. So we will have our council orientation. May election is May 6th, 2023. So we'll have a council orientation on May 10th. We will also have our board and commission application review workshop on the 24th, that is proposed. And of course, we will canvass our election, May 6th election at May 16th. And in June, typically you have a joint planning and zoning commission meeting and city council meeting in July. We're trying to maintain 1 meeting that month in July, so we're proposing that in June. That's all I have.
No concerns here. Anyone have any issues?
Makes sense to me.
Okay. Like this is great so far.
It's great. You're on a roll. It's great.
You're on a roll, Stacy.
Keep rolling.
July through September. Like I said, July, we're proposing just 1 meeting that month. And then for August, we would like to take a different approach on the budget. So in July and August, we will be bringing you budget discussions during your regular city council meetings. We will keep that study session agenda as light as possible so that we can focus on the budget. And then we're also proposing a budget town hall meeting so that you can present the budget to the citizens, receive feedback. And then obviously August, the second meeting in August and beginning of September, we'll still be talking about the budget, if any amendments are needed, and pass that in September.
The one question I have here is, prior experience says that August 9th is early in the number systems, making sure that we get all of the numbers back from all of the entities. Is that an opportunity to perhaps push that budget town hall perhaps later? That's an ask based on the fact that we got better numbers later in the month of August in our prior cycles. It seems very early.
You're talking about when we got the DCAT numbers?
Yeah, they come at the end of July, but remember, there
Yeah.
are,
But I think at this past, it was also delayed because of the COVID and everything. But who knows what it's gonna be like,
Yeah.
This coming year. You're gonna get the budget by the end of July, which is gonna have very strong estimates. Our finance department has done a very great job of making sure you never get numbers that say we have more money than we do. Historically, we end up coming back with a little bit more money after the rolls are all certified. All the contested properties are considered, because we still have that finalizing up now, so we know where we finally stand. But we have a strong track history and record of being very good on revenues. I am very comfortable at that point in time. and talking about the budget with you all and the public, because we know what direction we're starting to lean at that point in time, and it's more finalizing some small details. But that will also give us time to adjust. And this doesn't mean we can't have another budget town hall meeting, say there's
enough.
overwhelming interest, we can
Fair
always
enough.
do more.
That's a fine, that's a fine option, yes. Okay. That was my one observation.
Any other questions? And then finally, the end of the year, October, we will move to the second and fourth Tuesdays due to National Night Out the first week. And then November and December, we will go to one meeting a month, that month. And that's all I have.
I'm good. Anybody have any questions, concerns?
Thank you for thinking about our time.
You're welcome. You're
Yep.
welcome.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
All right, that takes us then to the last item on our study session agenda, which is to discuss future items. And I have a list, I think, of the prior ones, if you'll indulge me a moment. Thank you. Do we have anything, everyone had an opportunity, I assume, to look at what was on the list? Anything new to add? City Manager Williamson is bringing in a new format, so we have some anticipated dates as was requested going forward. More to be filled out in that going forward, I know. But anything new to add? We'll start with you, Richard, if I may.
So Ben, you can comment on this. I did, when I met with you and Mike last week, did a conversation around looking at all of the events that the city puts on, attendance, purpose, the costs. And what really raised my eye was that we have like 40 events between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And the first thing that came to mind was our poor staff, because these guys are at all of these events, many of them at multiple events. And so I think it'd be worth having some type of analysis of all those events and look at that in this earlier part of next year to maybe see where we can accommodate people's work-life balance a little bit better, including mine.
Absolutely.
That's
I
all.
believe we're going to try and consider that as part of the multicultural event as a broader discussion as we're setting that tempo for it, and maybe a preliminary discussion on the topic, and then we can have a more detailed discussion as we move forward. But absolutely, that has made it into my notes for that topic.
Okay, very good. That's all.
Thank you, Richard. Michael, anything do you have?
Nope.
Tracy?
No.
I do have one. I think there's a couple here that we have speeding and traffic. Are there the possibilities that some of these can get condensed on this list? Or are they separate issues? Richard, you brought up one, speeding and traffic, and Omar, you have speeding in neighborhoods. Are they similar issues? Are they the same issues? Is it citywide applicability? Is it neighborhood specific, which would deem a separate? This is where we talked about scope, having more definition on scope on what the purpose of the request is. So that's an ask perhaps of both of you, and then perhaps how we roll this up into the ongoing tracking list, if you will, or parking lot, no pun intended, with traffic.
I mean, I think it makes sense to bring them together. Open to Omar's comments. I think it makes sense. It's going to be, all the studying and work's going to be done by the same few folks, so.
We're treating it as one. We didn't want to lose the fact that it was brought up separately, so we can condense those in the future on the list.
That's fine, sure.
All right, fair enough. I'm not trying to
No.
diminish anybody's
Totally
input.
fine.
Okay, very good. All right. Anything else we have to discuss? If not, we are not having an executive session.
Correct.
So just to clarify the agenda, so we will close the study session at 4:49 unless there's any other discussion. We are now closed. Thank you.